Hey there, it's John. Before we jump into this podcast, I just wanted to let you know I had a little bit of a technical difficulty. It's not a big deal, but I wanted to alert you to it. The first couple minutes for my part in the podcast, my voice has a little echo to it and sounds a little bit more distant. It's really operator error. I've got this really cool Shure mic that is really good, even can make me sound good, and it's on this swiveling arm that comes around, and I hadn't put it in front of me. And so it was trying to record me while sitting 2 feet to my right. I figured that out about 3 or 4 minutes into the interview. Gracey, my guest, sounds great. And once I figure that out, the situation resolves itself. Enjoy the podcast, and thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Hey there, everybody. It's Jon Fleischman, and welcome back to another So Does It Matter one-on-one podcast where we try to connect you up in real conversations with people that matter in California politics. And I'm particularly excited today to be bringing you this one-on-one interview with Gracey Van Der Mark. Gracey, hi, Gracey.
Hi, John.
All right, Gracey is a candidate for state assembly. You're going to hear all about that. Gracey's a longtime friend of mine and a great conservative. And so the one thing that I wanted to say at the very beginning of this interview, before we go on, sometimes I talk with candidates and I don't know them, or I certainly am not involved. I'm letting everybody here know I'm supporting Gracey. I'm helping Gracey. I think she'll be awesome. And I don't want you to think that I'm some sort of independent journalist talking to a random candidate in this particular, which I do sometimes. But in this particular instance, this is me sharing with you someone whose candidacy I'm very excited about. So we're going to dive in. And Gracey, for you would know this, but for people who maybe don't tune into these podcasts very often, the first thing I do is I open up ChatGPT and I type, "I'm introducing Assembly candidate Gracey Van Der Mark for my podcast. Please give me a suitable introduction," and I have not read it. We're going to find out in real time what the introduction is. But I will give away the fact that it's figured out because it knows me now that I am a conservative, so I don't think it's going to be too crazy. But here we go. I'm going to put on my radio voice. Today we're joined by Gracey Van Der Mark, a principled conservative leader running for the California State Assembly. Gracey isn't your typical politician. She's a proven problem solver who's fighting to restore common sense policies, defend personal freedoms, and make our communities safer and more prosperous. With deep roots in grassroots activism, real-world experience in business and public service, and a clear commitment to fiscal responsibility and individual liberty, Gracey is stepping up to challenge the status quo in Sacramento. We'll talk about her vision for California, the issues that matter most to everyday families, and how she plans to bring accountability back to state government. That's pretty good. I mean, they didn't really mention what you do right now, but you're going to get to do that. So without any further ado, I want to welcome Gracey.
Hi, John. Thank you for allowing me on your podcast. I look forward to this little conversation we're having.
Well, I think it's going to be great. So the first thing that we like to do is talk about what you're doing here. And you're running for California State Assembly. Maybe we could start where before you talk about yourself, which would be the natural, because most candidates like talking about themselves. So Gracey, before I think we talk about your candidacy and why you're running and all of those things and more about you, why don't we first acquaint our watchers with where you're running? Let's talk about this assembly district. What's the district number? Where is it located? What are some of the cool things in your district that make it unique to California?
So I'm running for Assembly District 72. The cities included are Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Woods, Aliso Viejo, and Lake Forest. So I have the beautiful coastline in California, everything that you would imagine California would be like. We have about 488,000 residents and 119 square miles.
That's a lot going on. And so what are cool things in Huntington Beach? You've got the pier, right?
We have the pier.
And that beautiful beach that stretches all the way along.
It does. It's a beautiful drive, PCH. Everybody knows what Pacific Coast Highway is. So I get to represent one of, in my opinion, and I might be slightly biased because I live here now, it's the most beautiful stretch of coastline in California. We have the surfer community, we have shopping, dining, I mean, everything you can need we have right here.
That's great. And then then you got Newport Beach, which of course is iconic for their harbor. They used to call it the $1 billion bay. It might be the $1 trillion bay now, with the home values having done what they've done. You got thousands of homes right on the water.
And they have Fashion Island. Everybody knows Fashion Island.
That's the big retail center there where everybody can shop, and You know, I'm not currently thinking about going to Armani, but if I need to go to Armani, I think there's one at Fashion Island, but it's very beautiful there. So talk to us. So I think it might actually be helpful if we start off by, rather than talking about why you're running for the assembly to begin, why don't we talk about how you got involved in politics in the first place? What's the story of Gracey Van Der Mark?
So the Gracey Van Der Mark story. I
Yeah.
actually grew up in a small city in Los Angeles, hardly nobody's heard about, called Maywood, 1.16 square miles. It's a very low income, over 95% Latino community.
Where is that in where is that in LA? Is it in the South Bay? Is
So
it the
are you
South?
familiar with the 710 freeway?
Sure.
Okay, so if the 710 freeway, if you get off on Florence, I'm surrounded by Vernon, Bell Gardens, Commerce, Bell Huntington Park. We're just like the one little cram city right in the middle of
Holy cow.
that
All
area.
right. Okay. So it would not be fair that you to say, I mean, when you say you grew up in a small town, it's not really a small town. It's more like a small city that's part of the big city.
Yes, yes. It's a
Okay. All
small,
right.
tiny little
Yeah. Yeah.
city, and yes.
The only distinction is you can get on your bicycle when you're a kid and quickly leave the city because the boundaries are so small.
Oh yes, my house was in Maywood. My elementary school was in Maywood. Middle school was in Huntington Park, and my high school was in Bell. So that's
Yeah.
how close everything is. We didn't
All
even have
right.
our own schools.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. All right. So you grew up in Maywood, and
I
then
grew, yeah, very low income community. Most of the schools in my neighborhood were rated 3, and there's usually a path in that community for kids growing up. They're like me, where you go to a terrible school, then you are dumped into college, not prepared, and then end up dropping out. And then afterwards, you end up getting pregnant, welfare, and then you have children, and then those children go to the same school and they follow that same cycle. So I followed the first 2 steps. I graduated from Bell. I tried going to college. I wasn't prepared, dropped out, got pregnant, had my daughter, ended up having to be on Medi-Cal and WIC because I couldn't afford medical insurance. I was poor, ended up homeless. Got myself back on my feet once my daughter grew up. I said, gotta move out of here, moved out of the city, and got a great job and my own little apartment. At that point, I ended up married. It was a horrible domestic abuse situation. So then I ended up divorced with 2 kids at that point, sleeping in my car, once again homeless. At that point, I just had two little bodies, 2 little souls to fight for. So I fought again, got myself back on my feet, started working, ended up married. I've married to my current husband now for 25 years. And all I wanted to do was make sure that my kids had better opportunities than I did. So I'll tell you what I did notice was really made an impact on me. My daughter started going off to the same elementary school I went to, which is rated a 3. She was a top student in the school. So I figured, oh my gosh, I have a super smart kid or something. Well, when I transferred her from Heliotrope Elementary to Harborview Middle School here in Huntington Beach, I got a call a few days later saying that my daughter was not meeting the state standards in any topic except for one, and she was barely meeting that standard. I never knew that the disparity between the schools was so significant. So they asked me, what would you like to do? We need you to hold her back 1 year. That is our suggestion, our recommendation. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I need you to help me learn how to help her. I want her to be caught up. I don't want to hold her back. And I had teachers that volunteered to tutor her. They actually modified her homework so that she can slowly progress. And by the end of the school year, she was proficient in every topic in her STAR testing, her state testing.
that's
So
great.
that was a huge eye opener for me as of
Right.
to
But
your background.
the chilling part of that story is that we know right now there are still kids over at Heliotrope Elementary School and many other schools and communities that are being ill served, that they're not learning and
They're not.
yeah.
They don't have the resources. And all I needed here for my daughter to catch up was just one more resource, a little bit of tutoring, a little bit of help, maybe a little bit of attention. So, yes, that was really shocking for me. So I ended up moving out here. My daughter went to schools.
Welcome to the new world where the organizations like the California Teachers Association are only interested in resources going to their teachers. They're not interested in tutors and outside people to supplement. The teachers know the best. It's all, it's anyways, you can get me going about some of the impediments to improving public education in California, which largely come
Yes.
from the public employee unions. But anyways, go on. So you're in
Well,
Huntington Beach now.
I'm in Huntington Beach, and having had that experience, I kind of started not trusting schools a whole lot. I started going through my kids' curriculum, and then I found some very sexually inappropriate websites embedded in the sex ed curriculum given to our students here locally. It's in just about every district has it. It's a curriculum approved by the California Department of Education. I approached the school and I said, I'd like for you to look at what you guys just gave the students. I showed them the links. I clicked on them. They were XXX rated pornographic websites. You figure they're going to remove them? Just fix it. I just want you guys to protect these kids. And instead of doing that, I was looked at like I was crazy. I had to fight over and over in order for them to even just listen to me. So then I decided I'm going to vote for anybody who's not a current board member. I don't trust any of them. Well, then I found out nobody was running for those seats. So one thing my dad always used to tell me was when I complained, he goes, "So what are you going to do about it?" So when I saw there wasn't anybody running, I thought about that. What am I going to do about it? So I said, fine, then I'll run for one of those seats. And I walked out to the registrar. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to fill out these forms. I'm going to need some help here. I'm running for the school board. And that's when I filled out my paperwork and I ran for the school board. And that's how I got involved in politics.
Wow. So it must have been a very interesting perspective. So when you got elected to the school board, I'm assuming I assume it's 5-member school board. And I assume there weren't 3 of you running. So I assume you then had to deal with being on a school board while being not having the prevailing opinion, right?
Well, I didn't get on the school board.
Oh, you ran and
I
lost.
ran. Yes, I expected 1,000 votes. I was doing this to make a point. I'm not going away. You're going to listen to me, or I'll be a pebble in your shoe. So I expected 1,000 votes. 2,000, maybe friends, family. I ended up with over 12,000 votes. I lost by 2,000 votes to the board president. But I started approaching people, knocking on doors, talking to them, and showing them what was going on in the schools. And people would say, "Thank you so much for doing this. I love that you're doing it. I couldn't do it myself, but thank you for stepping up." So then that kind of motivated me to continue on this path.
So
And
the irony is that if you'd been a full-time candidate and weren't actually, I don't know, busy being a mom of 2 kids, you might be on the school board, but of course you had to split your time between being a candidate and being a mom and all of that.
yes.
And so this creepo got to stay on as the president of the school board that apparently is non-responsive to sexually explicit material being shown to the kids. Right now, I don't want to give away the story, but so actually I won't. So keep going, because I know what you're doing now, but I want the people watching to understand that you did run for something and you have been elected. So what does that look like?
So after running for the school board, I was asked to run for city council. And I said,
So
well,
what year is this now?
so I ran for the school board in 2018. And then I was
Okay.
going to run again in 2020 for the school board. But then I was approached to run for council in 2020.
Okay.
And so I told him, I said, if I run for the school board, I will most likely get elected. If I run for council, we don't know, but you need to tell me where you need me. I don't care about the title. Where do you need me? And they asked me to run for the city council, and that was in 2020. There were 3 seats, 18 candidates, and I came in 4th. So
So
I barely.
out of 4, right? You were electing 4. As I recall, I get to say this for you. I believe that city council had a Democratic majority on it, a liberal majority, and that you coming in 4th, you were the final vote getter to literally flip that city council from being run by a bunch of people who think the government is the solution.
Oh, well, and that was in 2022 when we campaigned as a slate of 4 with Tony Strickland, Pat Burns, and Casey McKeon. We did have a 6-1 liberal council. And then when we ran as a slate, the
Okay,
4 of us won.
so to be clear, you ran in 2020 and came up short.
Yes, there were only 3 seats then, and I came in
All right, so
4th.
now you're a 2-time loser, Gracey Van Der Mark, and you
It's
came
okay.
around, right? But then you came around in 2022 and had a whole slate of people. This part I know about, but our readers won't know. But so I can help a little bit. In 2022 is when I think a little ode to the Beatles, right? The Fab Four ran for Huntington Beach City Council, and that's when you got elected. And who else got elected with you?
So I was elected. It was Tony Strickland, who is now Senator Tony Strickland, Pat Burns, and Casey McKeon. The 4 of us ran as a slate, and the 4 of us won, and we flipped the council from a 6-1 liberal to a 4-3 conservative.
That's great. So what would be some highlights and we don't have to spend a bunch of time on it, but 2 years later, you all successfully rallied and elected 3 more people, and now you have a 7-member conservative council. I guess the nuance is Tony Strickland got elected in a state Senate special election, but then you all appointed Chef Andrew Gruel onto your city council. And so you have a great city council there. What are maybe, I'm afraid to ask this question because this is really about your assembly run, but if you were to highlight a few of the things briefly that you're pretty proud of that your council majority has gotten done in the city, what would those be?
So the major issue while we campaigned here was homelessness. So we're a tourist city. Every time people would walk down Main Street, they'd run into homeless people, people shooting drugs, passing out. So that was a number one issue then. We're one of only a few cities in Orange County where a homeless population has decreased to where now people are wanting to come back. They're people who hadn't been here in 10 years have messaged us, I have not been in your seat in over 10 years because of all the homelessness. They said, we just went back and we're so happy that we can now return to a clean, safe city. So that's really huge for us, considering we have, 50% of the homeless population here. $20 billion spent by the state resolving the homeless issue that has not gotten any better. And we were able to do this without spending any extra money. As a matter of fact, we did it for less money than our previous councils had done spent on there. So we're particularly proud of that because that is a big issue here in California. We're also the only city here in the city of Huntington Beach. I'm sorry, we're the only city here in California that has put voter ID on the ballot. Nobody else has done that. And we put it out there. We said, let the voters decide, is this something you want? Because they're trying to make it a right-left issue, conservative liberal issue. It's really not. Most people have common sense, and they said, yes, there's nothing wrong with having voter ID. This is what we want. So we're the only city in the state of California to have that.
Yeah, and we can have a longer conversation about this. The good news is there's a ballot measure coming in November to give voter ID to the whole state because yesterday, we're taping this in the morning of Thursday, January 29th. And if I get my act together, that's when you'll be watching it this afternoon. But yesterday, the state Supreme Court refused to take up the appellate court, overturned the measure or upheld the bottom line is that now the liberals who dominate the judiciary in California shut down the measure with some sort of weird argument that somehow either the national government or the state government has responsibility here and that it's not something that cities can do. But I think voter ID is going to be on the ballot in November. And I think a lot of the inspiration for that measure coming about for California has come from what you guys have done in Huntington Beach. So I'm going to pivot us a little bit because I want to be attentive to time here. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to share with people why you're running for the California State Assembly. What is it that's causing you? I mean, we know your drive to make a difference. And I'm sure at some level, a lot of it is still motivation that comes from your children and the kind of California they're going to grow up in. But I don't want to steal all your thunder. But what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why? So what do you want to tell us about your reasons for running for the assembly?
Well, this is an open seat. This is a +7, almost +8 conservative seat. So there was this vacuum. We needed a good candidate. Huntington Beach is the biggest city in the district. I do have some good name recognition here in Huntington Beach. So I had decided if this is an opportunity for me, just like I did between the school board and council, say, tell me where you need me. I felt the need for a good, strong candidate. And when Senator Tony Strickland approached me and he asked me to run for this seat, I was already thinking about it. So I figured this is the path I'm going to go. I figure there's nobody running for this seat. I would be the first one declaring. I'm very familiar with the area. I've lived in this area for 25 years, and I figure this is the time. This is the time to do it.
Yeah, well, I think that your conservative voice is much needed in Sacramento. So this is a district that's currently represented by Assemblywoman Diane Dixon of Newport Beach, former council member and mayor there, who's running for a supervisor against a left-wing, crazy, radical incumbent there. But so talk to me. I was looking over your website, and I have some familiarity with your campaign because I'm helping out as a volunteer. But one of the first things that I noticed is the tremendous amount of support you have from outside of Huntington Beach. There's always been, it's kind of interesting, there's always been a little bit of kind of a rub between fancy, hoity-toity Newport Beach and kind of like more blue-collar, down-to-earth Huntington Beach. But yet you've been endorsed by the entire Newport Beach City Council in your race. So, and then you have similar support from some of the other cities?
I do. I have I have the Seal Beach conservatives have all endorsed me. I have the entire Orange County Board of Education's endorsed me. I have the state Republican Party endorsement, the county Republican endorsement, the Lincoln Club endorsement, our police association endorsement. So I have just about all the significant endorsements you can possibly have. So that's been really encouraging for me because we have to make sure we get together and coalesce behind one candidate. That's how we win. I'm tired of losing because we just keep splitting votes, and to have all that support has been very helpful.
Well,
And actually,
I think that. Oh, go ahead.
no, it's been very helpful and encouraging because now everybody understands we're going to get behind the best candidate, and the fact that they're entrusting me with their support is huge for me. I'm actually really humbled by it.
And I would say this as somebody, I've spent decades involved with California politics. And I would tell you that when you get a district like the one you're running in, if it's kind of like I call it a Republican seat to lose, which means if Republicans rally and they're united and there isn't a lot of vicious infighting and attacks, and we go into a general election with a single strong Republican candidate, I don't think there's enough money for a Democrat to get elected in this district. I think that eventually what ends up happening is it doesn't become a priority for Democrats. The only way that Democrats have a shot at winning this district would be if there was a ton of GOP infighting and we didn't see the kind of coalescing around your campaign that we see. And by the way, I think that's why you're seeing the party institutions themselves, the Orange County Party, the California Republican Party, endorsing you, when frankly, normally the posture of the party would generally be, okay, let's have a Republican primary and let's let the best Republican win amongst Republican voters. But because of this top two system that we have, there's no guarantee that a Republican will make the general election. So that impacts party decision making. And then, like I said, more importantly, a big free for all that has our Republican candidate getting out of the June primary with no money in the bank because all of the money's been spent on a GOP brawl, leaves us ill-equipped to fight the Democrat in November. So
Well,
I
and then
think that's
now with having Senator Tony Strickland's endorsement, Janet Wynn, I just got back from Sacramento. I was there the day before yesterday, so the caucus has gotten behind me now, and everybody who was in the room
so to
has
be clear
endorsed.
for the people that are watching, if you say the caucus, they don't know what that means. So that means that all of the Assembly Republicans, they come together in a group, which we call the caucus, but it's the Assembly Republicans collectively got together and said, you know what, you're going to be our candidate. So the
Yes,
group, right. So welcome to my world where I like to walk everybody through what it all means. We're all used like, I guarantee you as a city council member, you've got a bunch of acronyms that you use. My favorite one, by the way, is RENA. Like when I say
yes,
RENA, it strikes terror through the hearts of people that believe in local control. And to anybody watching this show, they're like, what? What's that? I don't know what RENA is, right? By the way, that's an
yes,
obscure abbreviation for the process which the Democrats are using to force high density housing into
yes.
suburban communities around the state. But that's a topic for another discussion. Gracey, before we get into I'm going to do a little lightning round here with you where I ask you some questions so that our readers can find out a little bit more about you. Why don't you share with folks how they can find out more about your candidacy? Where do they go to do that?
So it'd be great if they can go to my website, gracey4assembly.com. And if they'd like to reach out, they can email me at gracey4assembly@gmail.com. If they do reach out to me, if they have any questions, concerns, suggestions, that would be the best way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. And so through the magic of editing, while you're saying that, your website address is right underneath you on the screen. And then also on the notes right below this podcast, we'll make sure there's a link to that. We'll also link you to Gracey's account on X so you can follow her there. And then now we're going to do this lightning round. Are you ready? Are you nervous? You should be nervous, right? I
I'm
might
ready.
slip in a question you're not prepared for. So the first question I have for you is, what's the last book you read?
So Pete the cat loves his
Pete the
white
Cat.
shoes. I've read that book about 5 times a day to my grandson. It's his favorite book right now. So that is the last book. My favorite books to read though are Chronicles of Narnia. I've read the whole collection about 5, 6 times.
All right, I'm going to send you, if you like the Chronicles of Narnia, I've got a couple of C.S. Lewis books to send you that help continue you on the journey. But of course, the Narnia books are great because, they tell a very similar story to Christianity and the faith and all of that. And so I think it becomes I say that as a Jewish kid, but I admire the books because they really ultimately walk their readers, especially young readers, through a fictional accounting that really helps you to understand that God plays a role in our lives, that there is somebody above that cares and intervenes and gets involved. What's the last film you watched?
So the last movie I watched was George, Incredible George. Once again, my grandson.
Okay,
He dictates what I watch.
no, this makes you real, right? I can always tell the people that have grandchildren, because instead of saying, "Oh, well, my last movie I watched was, the assassination of Grover Cleveland on Netflix," you're like, "Okay, I think I can more identify with you," right? So,
Here is
although I don't know
George.
what it's although if somebody asked me right now what the last movie I saw, I literally spent last weekend binge watching on the big screen the three Lord of the Rings movies, and so that makes me the world's biggest loser. But it was great and it was awesome. And again, another set of books that really has the same kind of theme as the Chronicles of Narnia, about good and evil battling it out, and then ultimately good prevailing. So, all right. So, your favorite American president of all time, and we can't say Donald Trump because then everyone would say that, because he's very popular right now, especially with Republicans, almost exclusively with the Republicans. But so, who would you say is a non-Trump former president that you think was amazing?
Actually, I really love Ronald Reagan. I feel we followed similar paths. He was also a Democrat and he moved over to the Republican Party. He put the people over anything else. And I admire, he was very composed, he was very classy, respectful. I really like what he's done. And up to this day, some of his policies are still helping us.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now I don't want to dismiss Ronald Reagan. We love Ronald Reagan. I have a quote from him right behind me about how facts are stubborn things. He liked to say that because he would always get in debates and people would want to talk about something without really basing it in any kind of reality, which is a common tactic of the left. Okay, so your least favorite, this we get more pithy now. Who do you think sucked the most as a president of the United States?
Okay, I don't like Biden, but I think the worst one for me was Obama.
Yeah,
He
you're
was a
kidding.
very, very big disappointment. He was actually the last president I voted for before switching parties, and I said never again. I felt disappointed. His policies have been insane. The Medicare is out of control. Nothing's been better. Hope and change never happened. That's what so many people who voted for him wanted. Hope and change.
Right. They wanted
Big
hope and
lie.
change that it didn't have. Okay, so we're going to move to current. Sorry, it's a lightning round, so we got to go lightning.
Yes.
Current world leader. Again, we're going to put President Trump aside. Somewhere on this planet that you really admire the job they're doing for their people.
So someone who I'm really impressed with right now is Marco Rubio. He's taken out all of the different tasks they're throwing at him. He's putting on the different hats. I'm sure it's exhausting. I'm sure it's stressful, but he's doing what's best for our country. So I really admire everything he's doing right now. I'm really impressed with him.
All right, I'm going to let you get away with that. Usually I'm looking for a peer to our president, not someone who works for our president. But no, that's great. That's a good answer. Rubio, boy, if you want to talk about somebody who's got the ear of the president, who's really driving an aggressive foreign policy agenda for the country, he would be the guy. So, how about a current world leader, not inside of the United States, a current world leader who you really, I'll use the word despise, because there's some despicable people running countries in the world right now. Who would be one that sticks to your mind?
I know you're looking for someone outside, but there's somebody I despise tremendously that I want to mention, and that's Gavin Newsom. I
Uh,
despise that man. I just cannot get past all the damage he's done to our country and our
all right, so
states, ruining
I'm gonna let you
everything.
get away with it because Gavin Newsom sees himself as a world leader as he parades off to Brazil, talking about how all of the draconian fees and taxes and policies on his climate change agenda have made California more affordable, which is a joke. He flew off to Davos in Switzerland.
Yes.
He's had California join as a state the World Health Organization. So I think all of those things qualify him to be someone who wants to be a world leader that we can despise. I agree with you. He's done a terrible job. So last but not least, Gracey, if you could wave a magic wand and you could change one thing in California policy right now, what would it be?
The gas tax keeps
All right.
increasing every July. It's affected the middle class family tremendously. All they want to do is get to work, support their families, and it's become unaffordable. I'm worried about what's going to happen in the next few years with our gas prices.
Well,
It affects everything. What we buy, our groceries, everything.
Well, and I'll say this I tend to get the last word because it's my show, but your answer is really astute, because if people are wondering why we have such high gas taxes, it's not because the people voted for them. In California, the Constitution says that with a 2/3 vote of each legislative chamber, the legislature can raise taxes. And under Jerry Brown and continued with Gavin Newsom, Democrats in the legislature raised gas taxes. And so your election becomes important as well as picking up seats, because if we can get enough Republicans in the state legislature, they won't have that 2/3 vote, which will stop them from raising taxes without having to go to the voters. And if you think that the voters of California would vote to raise their own gas taxes, that's a joke. So, Gracey, thank you very much for spending time with us. We really appreciate it. I want to remind people that are watching that the single greatest way that you can, this is a double win, the greatest way that you can help Gracey in what she's doing, and the greatest way that you can help me in what I'm doing in spreading the word, is to share this, just take the link, drop it in your email and send it to friends and say, hey, I watched this podcast and I thought it was really interesting. And then, of course, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can like it. If you subscribe, more people see it. And plus, you get alerted when there's more of these. If you're watching it on Substack, you can like it, you can restack it. But Gracey, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. And maybe more than anything, make sure you go to her website, which is, again, linked below, and get involved. That if you're somewhere close, you can come and get hands-on as a volunteer. But no matter where you are, as long as you're an American citizen, there's a link right on that website that you can make a donation to Gracey. And I can tell you, whether you are donating $10, $1,000, everything that you give will help Gracey to not only win, but to make sure that she's able to help other Republicans win assembly seats as well. So, Gracey, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So this